it's a really good thing that you're here and you're listening to this because your competitors are sticking their head in the sand. They're doing the same thing and they're just frustrated why they're not making the same income or the number of placements. Well, when there's pain or there's challenges in a certain market conditions, that's a great opportunity. That's where people can capture the most upside. So we'll probably start to share some tactics that we're seeing in how you can be more successful. But just to underscore, the first step is really just understand what you all know. The market conditions are not great. So do not continue to always do what you've been doing. Let's talk about what we can do moving forward to help you get in a really good spot, not just for the rest of this year, but moving forward for the next few years.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenly, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we have an incredible trending topics episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show. Sometimes we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space. Sometimes we're going to cover trending topics like today, items that recruiters are talking about or will be very soon and what those mean for them. Every Tuesday, we drop a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. Sometimes we open it up for Q&A. Listeners can drop in questions that they'd like to hear us take on. Send those over to us at podcast@loxo.co. And occasionally you'll hear a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that's been bouncing around in his head about the recruitment space and things that you need to know about. Today, we've got a trending topic episode that seems to be front and center in nearly every recruiting community, especially the agencies as of this recording, business development. I feel like just about every day I'm in communities or having team members being asked some form of, are things really slow for everyone else right now? Or one of my personal favorites I came across the other week was, how many new clients is everybody picking up at the moment every week or month? It's going that bad at the moment for me that I've forgotten what it's like to pick up a new account. So today, Matt and I are going to take on this topic from the top, breaking it down, what you should be asking yourselves, how business development varies in the different ways that you can and should be doing it, and a few tips that may help you get started in generating some more business. So with that, let's jump in. So Matt, biz dev, it's a big can to open up, right? So if we say let's kind of break it down in chunks to get into the meat of this conversation. So we're hearing a lot of things are slowing down. So one of the first questions that I think you came to me and you said was like, well, what's slowing down? Is it new customer acquisition? Is it fewer jobs from existing customers? Is it existing customers leaving altogether? So is there anything else that you would be thinking about when people say like, what is slowing down with your business?
Great intro, Sam. And before we get into BD specifically, obviously, the reason why it's such a hot topic is, I think we're all aware, is the economy, right? And so something has changed and shifted, and we're in this, 15-year time frame where you didn't even have to do biz dev, right? It just came to you, and it was supply demand, and you'd have more business and job orders to work on than you can handle. Well, things have obviously slowed down, and so that's predicating the conversation of biz dev and biz dev tools. So I think a lot of the Fortune 500 companies and organizations obviously are pausing hiring or freezing hiring or even doing some layoffs. So there's less jobs to work on, right? So that's putting a lot of pressure on search firms and organizations to go out and find new orders to keep their recruiters busy. That's really where the pressure is coming from.
Okay. And one thing you touched on in there that I think is going to be an interesting part of this conversation is you're talking about biz dev tools. But there's something in there that I want to make sure people really think about is there's no software that can do or solve for business development for you. Like this is a fundamental part of a business model. So let's start to define business development. So from your take, like how would you define business development for a recruitment agency, for example?
Yeah. So I think this is the heart of the matter here. And what I've learned and observed over the years, a lot of people have heard me talk about this. I've been on, no joke, over 7,000 plus meetings over the 10 years with recruiting organizations of all shapes and sizes. I ask lots of the same questions to understand where people are today and what they use and how they do things. Everyone always talks about business development, but no two businesses are alike, no segments are alike, and the vast majority of it say they don't really do it. So don't feel like you're alone. Don't feel like you're doing something wrong. There's essentially two types. That if you're a small boutique or independent headhunting, business development, it doesn't have to be sophisticated. You There's only so many ways you can reach out to prospects, and there's different styles. But a lot of people are familiar with the term MPC, which is most placeable candidate, or in Europe they talk about spec CV or speculative CV. Uh, we'll talk a bit about that, but when you're doing business development, you're trying to find obviously companies that are hiring, but you have to go out, reach out to them, see that they're posting jobs out there, or identify candidates that are highly placeable candidates and go try to pitch them, right? If you're a bigger, more sophisticated organization, those are the ones that are talking about like traditional kind of sales, business development. They have account managers, they have territories, they have different teams. And those are the ones that are struggling, which we'll talk about, to understand the right approaches, which I personally think we believe it's more account based. And so what we're trying to help our customers and people that we talk with are, you can do both. You can do many different models, but before you figure out the model, you have to make sure that you do have the proper tech stack to do so. But also you just set yourself up to success and understand there's different types of business development and activities to start with.
Do you think that some organizations are just too, things were great 1, 2, 3 years ago? Is part of it also, it's like they hired too many sales reps, and now that, it's, you've got a lot of people overlapping with the same type of territory accounts. Do you think that's contributing to the problem and decreasing margins for companies, or is that not so much a concern?
Not so much. I think the large recruiting organizations they're mature, right? They've been through different cycles. They're offer lots of different services. They have long-term contracts and different extensions of services. So they're okay. Obviously their growth rates might dip 10%, right? And that's substantial, but they're fine because they can diversify their revenue and they're going to ride it out. They're also trying to, it's a really good reset for smart organizations to understand where's the market going, where do we want to go, and they're making those investments. Where the pressure is really on the small, long tail part of the market, and that's recruitment. Most of the market is independent or boutique agencies, and they're struggling. They don't have the sophistication. It's a really good thing that you're here and you're listening to this, because your competitors are sticking their head in the sand. They're doing the same thing, and they're just frustrated why they're not making the same income or the number of placements. Well, when there's pain or there's challenges in a certain market conditions, that's a really good way. It's a great opportunity. That's where people can capture the most upside. So we'll probably start to share some tactics that we're seeing in how you can be more successful. But just to underscore, the first step is really just understand what you all know. The market conditions are not great. So do not continue to always do what you've been doing. Let's talk about what we can do moving forward to help you get in a really good spot, not just for the rest of this year, but moving forward for the next few years.
Yeah. I mean, that's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting different results each time. So, all right, we'll get into a little bit more later. And just to tease out, we do have tactic specific episodes. So definitely jump into some of our other episodes. Episode 4, using ChatGPT to shop your MPCs, for example. We're going to have another one coming out soon about how to generate inbound leads and consistent revenue. So we'll definitely get into those, listen to those for the tactical side. But one thing that you did mention was talking about you need to have kind of the infrastructure, the tech stack to support some of these efforts that you want to be driving. So what's that infrastructure look like to you?
This is what's fascinating to me. And I think recruiters, especially when the market's on fire, they get caught with this shiny, new toy. And as a tech company, we kind of laugh about this, but recruiters you think there's a quick fix for BD, right? Oh my gosh, things are slowing down. What tools should I buy? They go to these networks and online, who has some quick tips for getting lots of new job orders, right? And there's not. And the beautiful part, in my opinion, about business development and the veteran recruiters and recruiting firms, this is what they were built on. You were built on the era where, what's your number one tool? There's certain people that, if you don't know this, they're laughing. It's the phone, right? And of course, not everyone picks up the phone all the time, but the nice thing about business development is you can't control market. Nobody can, right? Hiring and recruitment, though, are never, ever going to go away. Recruiting and hiring, it's made up of, organizations are made up of people. Great talent, you're always going to have to recruit. There's hiring all over the place. So what people should be doing is understand your tech stack starts out with the simplify things. You need a list of prospects, which we will talk quite a bit about. That's the main part. Who are you actually calling and why are you calling them? You have to identify if your existing market is soft, forecast where the most hiring is going to be. Where's the most demand, supply and demand? How is that shifting? Identify the very hottest markets. Right now, VC and tech has kind of slowed down. So is healthcare a good market for you? Is AI a good companies that are hiring AI, right? There's certain markets that are on fire. Manufacturing, right? Identify a good market, understand how to build a list, and then focus on, before we get into actual technology and SAC, focus on the basics. Create an ideal prospect list, build out your outbound cadence, and then have a super high volume of activities and follow up and deliver an unbelievable product, right? And if you do that, we'll talk about the MPC and speculative CV side. You're going to get plenty of job orders. You'll have more than you can handle, and then you'll be back to where you were, if not ahead of, and you'll have a much better foundation moving forward when the market does warm up.
I mean, so I feel like nearly every episode we keep coming back to, if you do the fundamentals well, everything on top is the cherry. Like if you do those things, so many organizations are searching for that silver bullet, the shiny object that's going to fix everything, but really the fundamentals are what keeps your pipeline revenue consistent, steady, and everything there. So as you say, weathering the times right now, if you've been in tech VC, and you say, in passing, like, should you shift markets to healthcare, to manufacturing? Well, how hard is that for someone? Or I know it could be scary, daunting, especially if you're like, all I know is tech and engineers. Am I gonna have any credibility? Am I gonna be able to source the right people? Like, how does that come into play here?
Yeah, that's hard, right? And there's lots of gurus out there, and there's people in the industry. Donnie Gupton, which we talk about, and DSP, David Stephen Patterson, and they train, right? They offer courses to help. And those guys are the gurus, right? They're the ones that are in this. DeWalta, Charlotte, Doherty, talk to them, right? They can help. They're in this all day, every day. This is what they do. But we, on the other hand, get to see the broad spectrum. And recruiting is a process. Anybody can get good at it. I think some people get caught up too much with the imposter syndrome, right? Like, I've been doing this market for my whole life, or I have to be this world-class influencer for people to trust me. You don't. It goes back to why are you hired? You're hired to help people hire a world-class person, right? You can learn things fairly quickly by having conversations with people, by doing a lot of research. More than anything, be a continuous learner throughout your career. If you take one thing away from this episode, this is an opportunity to be introspective. When things are rosy and everything's perfect, people are always in their comfort zone. Get used to getting outside of your comfort zone. Get used to being having a growth mindset, and never, ever, ever stop learning and trying new things and staying ahead of the curve. And then you're always, in a good spot. So owning a niche is good because you become known for that. But what happens when the winds change, right? So what happens is you can keep that as part of your domain expertise, but start with some small tests and augment. So for example, if you've always specialized in, manufacturing, let's just say, or tech or something in cloud, you're hyper fragmented. I think DSP has like SAP. Go and do some research, find where the most in demand roles are, go onto AngelList, go onto different industry sector, Indeed, find where the biggest jobs are, and go find organizations that are your ideal customer partner that you've been successful with. And start there, right? And then on the flip side of the coin, go find the very best quality of candidates that you can find in the entire marketplace, and help them by saying that you're going to be an advocate to help introduce them to some of the top organizations across the country, and just help them in their career. Offer free advice, give them a value. Don't try to, and over time, you'll start to build relationships with those type of candidates, and then you'll make some introductions, right? You'll make some placements. So it doesn't have to be extraordinarily sophisticated on the lower end. Once you have speculative CVs, you can start to present those to organizations that are hiring now that you have those relationships. But on the higher end, more sophisticated organizations, you need a much more sophisticated model. You need to do account based. You need to pull and scrape list of ideal prospects, and then have an outbound motion, both marketing and motion as well as sales motion, which is your expertise, Sam.
Yeah. And one thing you said in there, it kind of gets into this next part is, when you do try to start making the outreach to the prospects to the candidates? What's the great foot in the door approach? Everyone's banging on hiring managers' doors right now via email, cold calls. But what you said was basically give value before you ask for it, show that you can help and everything else, because so many hiring managers right now are just hearing we're the best recruiting firm in the world, or like, it's them pitching themselves versus, hey, I've helped organizations like you in the past. I know what you're going through right now. You might not be hiring right now, but here's some things that I found to be helpful. And that alone, you're 1 out of 100 people that are probably doing that. So you're going to stick out a little bit there. And if you can keep pulling that thread to develop that relationship, to, like you said, pick up the phone, talk to them, they'll be so much more open to that conversation with you because you did take that approach, that they're going to start to associate that with the work that you do, your firm does, others, and how you go about doing it that way. So, yeah, I'll talk a little bit about just like a couple different marketing things, and then you can talk about the sales side, especially for the more complex org. So if you look at it from 2 lenses, I'll call like the broad lens, if you're wanting to talk to, all of the potential people that are your ideal customer profile prospects. So at the broad side, honestly, I've marketed both services and software, and it's easier to market services than software. I know might lose some people right here, but hang with me. The reason why is because you are the product. So what you do is you flip it on its head. You give your value away for free. You're not giving everything away, but you demonstrate your expertise. And so by showing people, basically, you're making a commercial for yourself, an ad for yourself. The more that you give and show the level of your work, what you can do, examples of this, how you think, people are going to think of you when they need the services that you offer. Then you're not one of a million or 1,000 recruiters are like, who's the best headhunter for XYZ? They're remembering you. They're going to reach out. So that's why I say it's a much easier job for you to show versus tell people. And you just have to get ahead of it and play the long game. So that's the broad approach. On the targeted side, it's going to what you were saying a little bit ago. Define who are the perfect 100 accounts, customers that you would love to work with. So be more proactive with them, help them, share items and content with them, invite them to be a guest on your podcast or another podcast that you listen to. You're like, hey, I think you'd be a great fit on this. Like, I've worked with Jenny over here. She's the host of it. Can I set up an intro? I think that the two of you would get along well. There's so many ways to add value to them. You just have to take the approach of, you're not going to close them on the first call, the first email. The goal is to set up the relationship. I mean, biz dev, when you look at the title in so many companies, it's business development representative. So many companies forget development is right smack in the middle of it, and no one wants to develop. They just want the end part of the customer. So that's what you're really doing, is you have to take the time to lay the foundation, to do the proper setting to get the relationship to where you want it to be. So that's kind of the marketing standpoint. Would love to hear, what your thoughts are from the sales side, especially as you're leaning more towards like some of the more traditional organizations or the larger ones.
I think you just added a lot of value, Sam, because people have not been thinking about, give first, right? The whole give first ethos goes a long way, and the best recruiting professionals do that naturally. It's about relationships. It's always been a relationship-driven business, and that's sales too, right? Going back to BD is just the activities, like the jobs to be done under the hood. And this is where we can start to help with tools and tactics. But once you have your list, the list is the most important part. Go pull a list. There's lots of different tools to do it. Filter it down by industry sector, by employee size. Make sure you identify your ICP and pull that list. You might have to massage it a bit, right? And then you're going to double click essentially down in that, and you're going to find your ideal prospects, right? Generally C-suite or hiring manager level. And then you get their contact information. Finding where contact is not that difficult, right? And from there, you're going to want to have some type of multimodal approach. One, give first, like Sam was talking about. That's kind of the warming up, long tail. Give first, you're not asking for things, add value. Be out there, put yourself out there. Half the battle is showing up and working, right? Don't put your head in the sand and hide. And you're going to do better than anyone from that alone. But then the tactics, you're obviously the bigger companies have more time to do this. If you're a full desk, you got to put yourself out there, but now you have to put in the work and get high activity. Pick up the phone. This is where you should work smarter, not harder. The activity part, high activity, is work harder. If you outwork anybody, you're going to have amazing results. If you add in intelligence to that with the right tools, get an outbound sequencing platform. Loxo has one, but so there's SalesLoft, there's Outreach, there's a million sales specific ones. Import your email list, start with a small cadence, and build a omni-channel drip sequence. And when I talk about omni-channel, you're gonna email them with valuable content, but you're also gonna call them and you're going to reach out in different ways. And again, some of these things you might reach out with a value as you kind of building those relationships. Sometimes you're going to just flat out ask for their business in different ways, right? And you can A/B test those. These tools will allow you to A/B test. But as long as you're delivering value, you specialize in it, they have demand, and it's relevant, and you're not annoying them, it's just a high activity game, and making sure that you can deliver value. And that the last part is really having a sales CRM so you can manage these relationships and track the deals and opportunities as they move through cold outreach, kind of early stage of the funnel through, okay, now we're actually having conversations. They are interested. From there on out, it's just organization and follow up, and then making sure that, of course, you deliver. And the most important thing for larger organizations, or even if you're small, which nobody does this, and I've seen this, no one does this. The largest organizations we've ever run into, 80 global offices, hundreds and hundreds of consultants. We have some of them use our own platform. We call it Deals. It's like sales product. Some use HubSpot. Some use Salesforce. They don't do what a traditional sales company would do. Like our company, with our team, we have weekly pipeline reviews. I hope a lot of you are doing that, but you'll sit down and you'll do, instead of just the searches and jobs that you're working on for where interviews are, you do that for the sales side and look at your deals, look at where they're at, and hold yourself accountable, set a goal. And if you do all of these things and you're not already doing it, just imagine how much better you'll do, how much more revenue you'll make, how many more placements you'll make. And that's where it all starts. Have a process, have a list, have high activity, and you're going to do really, really well. Get in a good market and keep learning and have a growth mindset. You'll be just fine.
I can't add anything to that'll make this conversation any better. That's the perfect spot to honestly to end this. So yeah, I mean, it's do the fundamentals well, like you said, and really stick to this. But it's really interesting how similar managing your recruiting funnel is to the sales funnel, and a lot of the similar activities and everything else. But it's like what's the old adage? What gets measured gets managed. If you aren't actively measuring it, setting goals towards it, then how are you gonna, you're not holding yourselves accountable to what you need to be. So you're gonna be surprised when you don't hit a goal that you never set. So that's some great advice. I love it. I think that's going to do it for this episode. I mean, as I said, I know we've got a number of tactical episodes. Go back in the feed to check those out. But if this was helpful, send us over questions. We're happy to go deeper on anything, bring in other experts from whether it's our team, others in this space to help go next layer within this. But I know it's a topic that's near and dear to a lot of people. So however we can help, we're looking forward to it. But Matt, as always, thank you for joining. Always appreciate the knowledge that you share. I learned just as much as hopefully everyone else does. So I know a lot of recruiters, hopefully they should start incorporating some of this in their day-to-day moving forward, or at least get those conversations started. So everyone, that's a show. It's Trending Topics with Matt. Until next time.